jobs kind of went. That was kind of my basic impression of the job market at the time. I had an internship at an agency that went pretty well. It went really well, actually. They were going to keep me on. And then they lost their number two client during that mini recession that we had. So I'm out, and which sucked because I was getting married 2 months later. So I was not planning that. In 2009 to almost 2011, I did not have a single design job. I made up my own stuff. I was giving stuff away just so I could do it. I was trying to find this, trying to find that. I got up with AIGA, just trying to figure out some way, shape, or form to kind of get into doing what I love. And I couldn't do it. I just could not break through. So, real life will hit you, and it's not going to be fun sometimes. But in 2010, I'm working at an Apple store. And it wasn't even a real Apple store. It was called Peach Mac. I couldn't even get a job at a real Apple store, right? So, sold a computer to the right guy, invited me up. He runs this trucking company out of Atlanta. Asked me to come up and take a look at some freelance work. Okay, fine. So I go up there, and we start talking, and then he lets me know that he doesn't have any freelance work. Well, at this point, I'm pissed because I took a half day, and I'm supposed to be doing all this stuff. And he said, well, hold on. He said, I don't want you to freelance. I want to hire you full time to run the whole thing, everything from identity design, branding, packaging, catalogs, signage, wayfinding, all these different things for the whole company. And quadrupled what I was making in the space of about 10 minutes, which was kind of crazy. Now, I'll always remember that day because I went home that night, and that's when my wife found out that she was pregnant with our now 7-year-old little boy. So,
oh my God.
a crazy
cool.
So I worked there for a couple of years. Now, it was during this time, a lot of things that kind of paved the way for the Studio Temporary to exist happened while I was working for somebody else. So for me, for those of you who, who work for other people, when you go home at night, you're not thinking about obviously your job, but you're still thinking about design, and you go home and all that work, you could stay up as late as you want, and you would feel so refreshed going into work the next day because you got to do kind of that thing you're wanting to do. You got to take what you learned from your day job and put it to work for what you're doing in the evening, and vice versa. It kind of goes both ways. That's what kept me sane doing most of the stuff. And now I really enjoyed my job, but that's what made it possible for me to have this happen. The first posters that I was able to print was because I had a job, and I was able to fund some of that stuff. So 2012 is when I founded the Studio Temporary. And this is an older photo of the place it was. It was an old sign shop, in this little back room here on the right. This little back room, little back door. Right under the steps, they would keep a key for me. I met the guy when I was working on a sign for a restaurant. I was helping him build it, and this at the time was about a 5-minute walk from where my wife and I lived at the time. So I got to use that back space. It was an awesome little workshop. Whenever he wasn't there, he gave me a key to the place and everything. This was kind of a little table and everything back there. And this was me. This is when I still had a full head of hair. This is back when my beard was nothing more than a bit of peach fuzz, trying to become something much bigger than itself. But this was my night, every night. Up in here, sometimes till midnight, sometimes till 2, 3 in the morning, and I have to be at work at 8 the next morning. So my first night, I decided I needed to call this place something. So as a joke, I called it the Studio Temporary. Well, a couple months later, I ran into a designer. It was one of my favorite designers. His name was Alan Fletcher. Has anyone, just by show of hands, has anybody ever heard of the design agency Pentagram? Everybody's heard? Okay. So the original name was Fletcher, Forbes, and Gill. And Alan Fletcher was one of the founding members of Pentagram. So in one of his last interviews before he passed away, he was asked, "What's the most important tool in your studio?" And like the awesome designer, old school master designer he was, he said, "It's my head." Right? So I went back to the studio that night, and I just could not stop thinking about it. So I came up with this idea of good design wherever I happened to be, and that's the studio Temporary was founded. Now that was back in 2012. I did not go full time until nearly 3 years later, over 3 years later, actually. So it's a lot of this stuff and a lot of these things that some people knew the studio knew me for, happened while I was working somewhere else. Now, these weren't exactly the greatest times because 2012 I got laid off. 3 months later, um, still can't find work. We're falling behind, falling behind. I got a 1-year-old little boy. We come home one night and there's an eviction notice on the door. This wasn't that long ago, you know, a little over maybe 6 years, and a little over 6 years ago, and you know that'll hurt you right there. You know, we are. You know, we got 2 days. We got to get out, and you know, I remember my wife and I sitting in the middle of the floor with all the boxes and everything, just an empty apartment. You know, and that's where I kind of had to make a decision. You know, do I keep going, or what do I do? Well, it's during time that you're telling yourself that you can still do this, that there's a reason you picked this industry, there's a reason you're having success, even if it's not showing up at the moment. And it's almost like I'm having to lie to myself just to keep myself going. But little odd jobs between then and there. 2014, I got a job at an in-house agency up here where we live now in Ackworth. And that during that time, once again, I'm still doing my thing, still trying to figure everything out. 2015, out of the blue, got laid off, and I walked out of there. What I hope will be my last ever corporate job. Walked out of there, met my wife and my little boy. We were supposed to go to lunch that day, and here I come walking out the door carrying a box of all my stuff, right? So we're sitting in the car, and she says, I'm tired of this. If you're gonna start your company, if you're gonna do it now. At least you'll have some control over it. So during all the 3 years leading up to this, I had accumulated multiple things, namely some favors from people. So I started making calls. Within 45 minutes of me walking out of the studio, out of my last job, I had 5 meetings. And now here we are. We're coming up in March, will be 5 years running it full time. But it's been crazy. But 2015, I found these folks, Switchyards. This is where a lot of people might have recognized me from, especially here locally. But I got a chance to design the sign that's painted right there on the front of a 95-year-old building. I got to design that and get that hand painted on there. So my studio, little place in there. I was there for a little over 3 years. Yeah, love this place. I collect a lot of stuff, lots of fun, crazy, weird stuff, and things that mean a lot to me. I'm very happy about it as well, as you can tell. And that's where I kind of came up with this mantra that you guys see right now. This whole idea of freedom to work, freedom to live, and what is it? That's what I wanted from this. This is what I want from design. I want a chance to do the work. I'm not looking. People paying me to fly places and conduct workshops or give talks, or give their in-house design team a kick in the pants, or just fly out and have me be a part of something. All of this is icing on the cake. If I never got a chance to do this, I still love what I get to do, right? And this is really where this whole mantra kind of came from. And during this time, I'm just going to scroll through some stuff. During this time, over the last couple of years, really, I've had a chance to do a lot of just fun, weird, crazy, but interesting and memorable pieces of design. Some of them were just for me. Some of them were for clients. Others were nothing more than an exploration of style, just some fun things that I've always wanted to do, celebrations of events that were happening, to, I had a really horrible day, so I'm going to make something to kind of clear my mind about this whole thing. And that's kind of what I love about design, is it can be any one of those things. You can just do something for fun. You can do something for a client. But the fun part about this is a lot of the things that you do for fun, more often than not, will end up getting you that dream job that you never knew you wanted, that dream client that you didn't even know existed. All of that will happen just because of some of this work that you've had a chance to do, whether it was for a friend, whether it was for a family member, whether it was client based, whether it was something that didn't make it past the first round. So that's kind of what I've been up to over the last, really over the last couple of years, and what I want to continue to do, right? A couple of things that I would kind of work on this is you just show up in the morning. This is my morning, every morning, up in the morning, usually prayer in the morning, and then I write my to-do list. And I don't make a to-do list that I can usually get done. I want to make a long to-do list to push myself, right? And I try to do that each and every morning. This idea of rise and grind, while it's not original to me, I just made my own little take on it. This is what I think of this in the morning. It's just showing up and getting the work done. If you continue to show up, you continue to do the work, you're going to get better, you're going to get faster, you're going to fall. For me, you'll even fall more in love with it, man. When folks see consistency. When I spoke at a design conference in Chattanooga last fall, and one of my good buddies, Jason Craig, was the MC. Jason's here from Georgia, from Augusta. He's an incredible designer and illustrator, one of the funniest guys, and one of the more passionate guys I've ever met. But he introduced me, and one of the things he mentioned was just the fact that I was constantly working, that I was constantly putting things out. I was just there. I just showed up. I never talked to him once about that, about what he was going to say or how he was going to say it. But that's how people saw me, right? And there is something to that, right? You don't take no. We've all been turned down from stuff before, and we always take it so well, right? When a client doesn't like something that we did, we are always just fine about it, right? Well, I'm not like all you guys, right? So sometimes I do that a little different. On the typeface that I was playing around with, just a couple of characters, I said, you know what? I'm tired of this. I want to do something with it. Is anybody here familiar with Retro Supply? Dustin Lee. Okay, so Dustin Lee is a very good friend of mine. He hired me to actually complete this typeface. So that was pretty cool. He commissioned the poster printed, get some stuff done. The big poster, which we sold and or gave away or whatnot, which was really cool. I got to make it this is the first known use of Solid 70 as a poster I got to design for a talk that I was giving, which was a whole lot of fun. From there, I've gotten to make a lot more typefaces. Firebox up in the top left, Authority. If anybody's ever used Authority as a typeface, that was me. Transistor down there in the bottom left, and then this awesome little old school diner style typeface in the bottom right. Got a few other ones on the way. I'm working on those. I'm hoping to launch those here in the next couple months. But I started up this whole thing just because I didn't want to take no for an answer. I also play table tennis quite a bit. Anybody here is, I don't think you and I had a chance to play yet, but coming down to Creative South, I've been told we're going to try to get a table down there next year. So this is going to be a lot of fun. I made my own brand because I was just tired of what was out there. Pretty much all there is to it, You do whatever it takes. Is anybody familiar with Johnny Cupcakes? So Johnny Cupcakes, Johnny's a friend. He's become a mentor over the last year, year and a half. One of the nicest guys in the world to talk to. His family is amazing. The people that work for him share his spirit, which is something else. I've got to know his illustrator, his team, a lot of his designers and illustrators, and now I had a chance to do some work for him. I'd been bugging him for 2 years to let me do something. And when he finally gave me the opportunity, it was at the absolute worst time possible, timing-wise, for me. And I said, you know what? I'm going to take it. I had a day and a half. I had just less than 36 hours to do 2 T-shirt designs that would be featured in his, what is it? Excuse me. In their home base location in Boston, So I got a chance. First one, just a quick little guy, state of Massachusetts, with an awesome looking beard, a little more stubble than beard, but the tattoo kind of makes up for it on his arm there. And then something from the Red Line, Green Line there in Boston. And these are now, by the way, these are not my Photoshop mock-ups. These are actual photos of the T-shirt itself, which is really, really cool. They even made a zine. And this is the centerfold. It was a story of how Johnny and I worked together, and just crazy, absolutely crazy. Put the work out there. So I did this piece. I'm gonna run through this stuff really quick, and then let's see how I'm on time. Oh, I'm doing really good on time. So got a chance to work for the Atlanta Hawks. Now, I had a piece that I did for ESPN that didn't come out well. It ended up not just not being a good fit. But the Hawks were looking for somebody to do a new identity for their esports team, the Hawks Talon GC or gaming club, and they wanted somebody local to work on the identity for it. Well, they searched for some people, and they came across that piece that was a failure for ESPN, and they liked it so much that they asked me to do it. Now, this is very true, but thankfully everything is passed through the first season, so I can now show you guys all this cool stuff. Identity design for Hawks. I started out meeting with them. We talked about everything from colors to the city itself, and this is really how my process goes. Meet with them either in person or on the phone, a Zoom, Skype, FaceTime, anything like that. I always do that with every single client. I always have some type of communication like that with them. So we talked about the city, we talked about how much I loved it, we talked about what we're trying to do, what this means, how we want to just kind of get all this stuff out there. From there, sketch, get the rough stuff out there. I went through, oh my goodness, so many of these things, and just went nuts. Actually, I'm gonna show you guys this real quick. See if I can get my illustrator to start up here. So during this time, here I am working through. I didn't have a whole lot of time really to work on this. Hold on, let me fix my there we go. All right, let me fix this. So now nobody's artboard looks like excuse me. Nobody's artboard looks anything like this, does it? We all do, man. It's all kinds of crazy. And this is maybe one of about 3 of these things, maybe 4. Just going through just over the course of a couple of weeks, trying to make this stuff happen. Everything from, and this isn't even the uniforms or the court design or any of that type of stuff, but this is how in depth I go. And then present them. Just here's the logo, here's how it's being used here and there. So we've got the court design. Now this is all going to be digitally rendered within the game for NBA 2K, right? So we got these guys right here. Got to collaborate with the in-house team. My awesome creative director is Shirley Zhang, Melissa Proctor, the chief marketing officer, and the designer that I worked with on in-house, my buddy Luke Gomez. All these guys did a phenomenal job. Were amazing to work with. Some uniforms, got my hat. Here's proof that this is not a mock-up. That is the real deal. New era all the way. That's what blew me away about working for a company like this, is when they had their stuff done, man, it was out there so fast. Can everybody still see this?
Yeah, looks great.
Okay. So everybody sees this stuff's really quick. And now here's the folks in game. I got to meet the people in person. That's the whole team. I got everybody to sign my hat under the brim, which is really cool. I'll sell it for lots and lots of, no, it probably won't be worth that much, but it's worth a lot to me. So that was kind of that. In other news, now this is just me. I just put the work out there, the stuff that nobody else wanted. And somebody saw it, realized what it was, and gave me this opportunity, which has since really changed my entire life. In other news, some stuff from my folks over at Iceman, this ice delivery company. I got to make everything from the trailers to the tubs to T-shirts and illustrations and stuff. My buddy Derek just killing it. Inch by Inch. Has anybody ever heard of them? Inch by Inch. They're in a they're a nonprofit. It's a monthly button thing. It's quarterly now, but it's all for art education. It's all for everything that comes out of this goes towards art education through their kind of nonprofit. Well, they asked me to do a Georgia version of this guy, so I got to do this. Got my little registered trademark up there. Peaches, of course. Another little hometown legend down there, which I thought was cool. The Varsity, the little hot dogs, chili dogs down there. If you've ever eaten there or been there, you would understand that and get that one right off the bat. And then the little Empire State down there for Georgia. And these guys were just cool. Still one of the coolest things I've ever done. My buddy Chris Logston, who's recently on Creative Waffle, I got to make some shop rags for him, and which will actually be featured in a book that he's coming out with called the Shop Rag book, which will be coming at some point, I'm told, but he has officially kicked it off. And this rag will actually be featured in the book, which I'm super excited about. My first neon sign, my little A-Town design for Atlanta became neon. Then it became a flag at Atlanta United for any football fans here. It is now a permanent part of the Atlanta United flag game, which got a beautiful gold upgrade. Let's see, illustrations for buddies, some T-shirts for a little Camp Everywhere. Got to make a bat. Our buddy Mitchell Bat Company out in Tennessee. It was super, super cool. And then from there, the Atlanta Braves, I was there at the baseball stadium on Thursday signing these posters in the clubhouse floor. Is anybody a Run the Jewels fan or a Killer Mike fan? So this is, what is it? This is him. He's a friend, an ally, and as of this year, a client. I got a chance to meet him last year. We've stayed in touch ever since, and I'm working on some cool stuff for him. By the way, we're at the Varsity right now. That was his, in this picture, that was his, actually his idea, which was really cool. The whole conversation was a lot of fun. For an hour and a half, we sat in there and we talked our stories. We told each other where we came from. We talked about old school design. We talked about barbershop culture. We talked about the state of affairs in the country and everything like that. I mean, it was phenomenal. Just an incredible time. And and he's got a line of barbershops called a Swag Shop. I'm working on some cool stuff for him. I just went through really, really quick because it's not out yet, but I'm really excited to show you that when it comes out. Very last thing, then I'll be done. This is very, very important, as you can see. Very quickly, just things that I live by. Have some respect. This should be enough. Treat others with respect. Everything from your waiter and waitress to people that you see around you to people that think a little different than you. This is very true. Obsession does come with a cost. It cost me about the first year of my kids' life. I can't get that back. I can't. When I was in college, it cost me relationships. It cost me time with people who may or may not have liked me or wanted to hang out with me because I was obsessed with what I was doing. It paid off in the end, but it will always come with a cost. Sometimes it won't be that dire, but maybe sometimes you don't get to go out. Maybe sometimes you have to turn some things down so that you can get this stuff done. But that's always going to come with a cost. Take time for others, just in general. Your name, people will remember your name far longer than your work. When your work has crumbled into nothing but pixels, forgotten in the bowels of the internet, people will remember your name. I'm not judged by what I did 2 years ago. I'm not judged what I did 2 seconds ago. I'm judged by what I'm doing right now. This is true, whether it's who you voted for, whether it's who you are as a person. This is okay. In the end, we're all beings. So please, please, please remember this. And lastly, there are no excuses. I've had more opportunity to have excuses to kind of just fall by the wayside than anybody I can think of. But I can't do that. It doesn't matter where you're from. It doesn't matter what you're going through. We always find a way to do things that we want to do. And this is no different. And remember, after all of this craziness, after me jumping in deep and all this type of stuff, in the end, stuff's just supposed to be fun. It is. I love what I do. I love the fact that I get to come on here and talk to you folks. I love the fact that I get to do it for them. My lovely wife, my little boy, Minnie got in the picture somehow. This is us at Disney World last year. You know, we got to do this because of design. And I'm thrilled to say that I've made a living doing this. I may not have done as well as some, but I've done not too bad for myself. And in the end, this is who I do it for. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. I really appreciate it. It was really insightful to kind of see your process. And I think everyone definitely gained something from that.
All right. You have to speak up a little bit, man. I can barely hear you.
Sorry. So I was saying it was great to have a good insight into your work. And I was wondering if anyone had any certain questions that they wanted to ask now.
Yes. Please ask away.
Or... Yeah, Izzy?
So you mentioned that when you walked out of like the company, like you called people, like just cold calling them, and then you had like 5 clients out of nowhere. How did that happen? Because cold calling seems to be like an issue these days for clients.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the thing. Once again, this gets back to me doing work as a studio temporary while I still had a full-time job. I had a lot of contacts. Even if I didn't have any clients, I had a lot of contacts. I learned from a very, my first time out the door, my first time out the door, college and everything like that, I learned that knowing people, a lot of times people get things just because they knew people, or they'll get into things, or they'll have, there might be even some prestige to knowing this person, And, I've found some of that to be true, some of it to not be as true over the last 10 years, but I knew these people. They knew my work. I've been putting the work out there. They knew I could do my job. They knew I was good at what I did. So a lot of these cold calls were me calling people that either A, owed me a favor, or, or B, who, could put me in touch with somebody who could help me out. So and then as far as cold calling, I still did that. Even, up until a few years ago, you never know what's going to happen. And some of that has turned into business. Some of it hasn't. There's now it's a lot more word of mouth for me. I don't reach out as much as I used to anymore. But
how do you reach out? Because I find like there's an art to that. Like, I find like I'm calling from experiences. Like, it's like some people like to have like, the like sweet approach, which is like, I love what you do for a community, but your business could really benefit from like, a design refresh. here's my portfolio, blah, blah, blah. And some are like I find even in meetings, it's like, they ask you, what do you think? And they don't want to have the soft approach. They want to have like, they want you to be super direct. And it's like, well, it sucks, you know?
Well, here's kind of what I found works for me. When you're calling out somebody like this, you're doing it for a very personal reason.
Okay.
So you can afford to be a little selfish. You can say, I would love to do this for you. And it may not start out as the logo. It might say, you know, like I've done stuff for people, like I've done these shirts for people and they say, this is too good to be under our logo right now. I think we want to redo, I think we want to take the next step. We want to redo our identity before we launch any of this other apparel that you designed for us. Okay, well, that's how it all started out, you know, and even if you don't get it right then, I would say a lot of this stuff is not going to become work immediately. It may not ever become work, but you will be on their radar more than anything. I'm the king of following up with people, you know. So just continue to do that. So it won't be an abs like right off the bat, hey, this happened. But it plants that seed in people's mind. You never know.
Because it's all about building relationships and nurturing time, and then
it's a personal thing, right? So this is why when I work on a new project, I always have to have this type of conversation with somebody. Sure, you can get in touch with me through my site, you can get in touch with me through text or email or whatnot, that's fine. But if we're going to work together, we're going to have a personal conversation, you know, live, because that's where this stuff is built upon. Otherwise, people can just go and throw it to the wolves on 99 Designs or just throw it out there. Somebody send me some stuff. Maybe this will be cool, or, you know, or whatnot. But that personal relationship, and that goes back to what does your name mean? Because when I say, you know, if somebody says, you know, Scott Fuller, they say, you know, Mark Hirons, they say something like that, you know, something's going to come up and something's going to pop up in their mind when they hear your name, right? So let that be something good.
And Scott, I had a question. How do you build up those connections and relationships? Where are you finding these people? On the internet, at events, or what's your main source of relationships?
Yes. I mean, it's everywhere. One of the things that I always tell people is just to be available. I've gotten clients playing at a pickup basketball game, and then stuff from that ended up at the Rio Olympics. I never know where this is going to come from. I never know, you know, people have asked, what's your dream client? And it's like, I don't know, the next one. Because I never thought that designing socks would be amazing, or that socks would be my way into having stuff show up at the Olympics. Like, I never would have thought that. But I was available. I was just on the lookout, right? I've met folks at the grocery store. I've met folks at a restaurant. I've met folks at AIGA events, creative mornings, conferences, all these different things. They're everywhere. And it's not, and here's the key. Here's the key. It is not just designers. It is not just designers. If you are keeping your circle to just designers, to just people who are like you, you are doing yourself a massive, a monstrous disservice. As a person, as a career move, anything, man. There are some people who have apps that I love hanging around with who have absolutely nothing to do with design whatsoever. But they've helped me out in massive ways, right? And I enjoy hanging out with them. They're just great folks. But you never know what that's going to be. It's that availability. It's that, and the ability to just be approachable, you know? Here's Diane Gibbs and I, it's Design Recharge. Anybody here familiar? I know a few of you are. One of the things we talked about with this whole networking, hate that word, because what I envision is when I see, I'm just going to say this right now. If any of us see any of you guys running around with a stack of business cards, handing them out like it's Halloween candy, I will avoid you. I'm just going to say it, because we know that, you know, it's just pass them out. I'm going to tell you right now, I got probably 17, 18 business cards while I was at this past agency. Do you know how many I kept?
All of them.
2. When I'm at a conference, that number goes up exponentially. You know how many I generally keep? Maybe 3, maybe 4. I'll get 100 of them during this time, you know. But I'll remember the person. But if I remember the person, and if I really want to get in touch with them or something like that, I'll keep that card just so that I know it's like, okay, this is who this means. And these personal relationships, and it's not about. There's no strategy to this. There's no strategy to just being a normal human being, you know. There's no strategy to just having a conversation with somebody. Just have fun, man. You know, like I said, this stuff is supposed to be fun.
So, sorry.
No, go.
No, go ahead. What you got?
Well, so
You have the screen.
yeah. So, okay, how do I explain this? So I noticed that when I work for clients in the Netherlands, the way that they approach designers and work with designers is very, very different than how that works in the US, because they're very much face-to-face. They would never, ever go out to someone to ask someone to work for them remotely. Whereas I feel like in the US, people are much more comfortable doing that. Mm-hmm. And I was wondering how your process and how your approach is towards working with people remotely that you actually never really met in life, especially because you say like, I meet this person and that is the reason why I keep these cards and stuff. But what if you actually never meet someone? How does that go?
Well, Fred's a good example. This is the first time I've ever met him in person, but we've had a chance to have, you know, conversations, whether it's mostly through Instagram Messenger, through my little Instagram Live that I try to do on a weekly basis, depending on my schedule. But you can still get to know them as a person. Now, it takes a little bit more time, you know, like even I've met the guy who did my website. I've never met him in person, but we've had a lot of phone calls. We've had a lot of interaction back and forth. I've even done a little bit of work for him. So even if I don't meet them in person, I'll always have some type of a call or something with them to kind of figure out who they are as a person. Because like, if you sent me an email, like I can't tell what type of person you are, right? But if you and I have a conversation like this, even if I never see your face, right, I can get an idea of who you are as a person just by talking to you, right? And I'll see something, I might look at their work. I have enough contacts in the industry now that if I'm interested in somebody or if I want to get to know someone, I can set up an intro. I can ask around. I have asked around about people, you know, what do you think of this person? You know, I think you know this person. You know, tell me about them. You know, people are constantly doing that. People are doing that about me too, right? Just recently, I know this for a fact, you know, and it's still really cool to know that I still have a good reputation, which is cool. But being able to have, whether it's a call or something like that with somebody, is a huge help for me, right? So whether working remotely, whether working side by side, that's just something that's helped me out a lot. I mean, most of my clients, I'm not going to be able to meet in person. I'd say maybe now I have a lot of local clients here in Atlanta, so I've had a chance to do that quite a bit. But like I'm flying out to Phoenix, Arizona in just a couple of weeks to do a couple of workshops and a talk. I've never met any of them in person, but I had that call, started out with the messages, then went to a call, then a FaceTime, and then next thing you know, here I am headed out there to do that, you know? So it's a different process for everybody, but it gets back to actually having relationships, to thinking about it just as a regular human interaction.
So maybe like a very small follow-up question to that. I think What I'm wondering is, what do you think from a client's perspective would make the decision between choosing for someone that they met in real life to work with or someone that they worked with remotely? What would be the key difference for someone to work with remotely to make that difference. So for example, if I was to reach out to someone in the US and want to work with them, how do I convince or talk to this person or go into a process in this way with this person so that it reaches for me instead of someone that he lives close by and works with and knows.
Mm-hmm. So I've had this happen before too, you know. So there's a couple of ways. One, communication. One, understanding that you understand their needs, you understand what they're trying to do. You make deadlines, you hit them. You have a reputation for doing that. So people will check. Trust me, they will check. Number two, your work. Your work will speak volumes. And the third thing would be the service that you provide, right? This is, you know, everything is all based on your service. That's from communication when you first get the project. That's writing that email when you first reach out to them. That's choosing what type of work you show them, to pricing, to everything like that. But if you show that not only are you capable of doing the work, but showing that you understand what they're trying to accomplish, that you have the tools to make that happen, and that you have either done this before or are confident enough to make something like that happen. There has to be that confidence there to do that. I've worked with, there's a company overseas in the UK called Aviate. It's a watch company. I've only ever talked to them for maybe 5 minutes, but I've had a chance to do some work for them. And in exchange, they send me watches. I mean, that's kind of cool, you know, but that happened because I reached out to them. They had been using certain folks for years, but I reached out to them and said, look, I love this. My granddad was in the Air Force. I remember all these stories my mom told me, and I never got to meet him because he passed away when my mom was a teenager, right? But I feel this connection to him, and I really feel that when I see your watches, and I think they're very well made. They're very cool. I'd love to find a way to collaborate. Yeah, a year and a half later, I got 3 watches from these guys, and I've done, you know, work for them. So it really is that, once again, we're back to personal human connection. You know, this is not a sales pitch. You know, now I am saying, yes, I mean, there is some version of sales to that, but you know, this is me just being me, right? When they come to the studio temporary, they're coming for work, yes, but they're also coming for personal, you know, back and forth with me.
Right.
Does that help?
Yeah, definitely.
Yay. Okay, who's next? Keep them coming.
I've got one. You mentioned you work solo, but your work is quite prolific. You do a lot of different types of designs. I'm wondering if you ever collaborate with other designers, or you outsource it to other people, or you bring people in yourself.
So I have collaborated with people before, the Inch by Inch. I'm working on a mural for the Wichita Airport right now with a good friend of mine out of Wichita, actually. We're working through that. That should be out in the next month or so. You know, it's kind of crazy because I look at everything as kind of a collaboration. I don't really use the word, you know, client that much anymore. But as far as outsourcing work, I have never done that. I've never hired another designer. Now, the one thing I don't do is web design. Web design, UI, UX, none of that. I don't do any of that. So if somebody comes in and says, we need this done, I have a list of vendors that I have either used in the past or that I know and trust. That is a very difficult list to get on. Very difficult list. Because here's the thing. And then this is a rabbit trail. I'll get back to that in just a second. My vendor list is severely sacred to me because when you send somebody to work with someone, that also comes back on you. Because if they have a crappy experience with that person, they'll come back to you. Why did you send me over there? Do you know what happened? This was late. This wasn't right. And none of this stuff, you know. So I will always, like, even with the vendors that are on my list, I say, look, I want to recommend you to do this thing.
Yeah.
Is this something that you can do? This is probably about the time frame they're looking for. And before I even suggest that to somebody, I will do that checking first, right?
Yeah.
So, but as far as outsourcing and stuff like that, if it's something that I don't do, I will give it to somebody else, and
Yeah.
I don't take a piece from it. I don't take a finder's fee, none of that type of stuff, because I'm not doing anything. They got it because I either didn't want to do it or I couldn't do it, or it wasn't something that I had the capability of doing. They're going to be the ones doing all the work. They should get all the money. That's me.
Yeah.
But I do have a group of people that I stay in contact with, that we shoot ideas back and forth off of each other. So I'm not totally alone in this thing, but as far as the work that has been put out on my site, on my Instagram and everything like that, that is all me.
But there's no desire to expand Studio Temporary to have.
Not really. I mean, there have been conversations. Every single podcast that I've talked to in the last 3 years has asked me, when are you going to expand? Are you going to bring more people on? Are you going to do this type of stuff? The answer right now is no.
Yeah.
Maybe it changes. I don't know. But for the moment, I'm very happy to have the flexibility that I have. I have very happy taking on the clients that I have. Now, the fun part is this past week, I just, I have an agent. I now have an agent. That'll be announced within the coming weeks. But I now have a rep. Not all. I will still be taking on work that'll personally think, but now I have somebody that will, that'll help me through all that type of stuff. That'll be looking for work from me, representing me in certain ways, shapes, or forms. And I'm so excited about that. This has been a long process trying to get to that point to where I can do this, but that takes a little bit of pressure off of me too. It's bigger work, it's bigger clients, but with that, more money, more pressure. It's just going to happen, but I'm excited about it.
So how do you identify yourself? Is it a creative agency or a business or a freelancer? Because you're solo, how do you?
Designer and illustrator. That's pretty much it. I'm not. It's kind of fun. Like, I don't say we. It's just me. I'm a one-man shop. But one of my favorite things is when people look at this and say, "How many people do you have working for you?" And inside, you're just kind of like, and it's not like this proud, whatever thing. It's just, this validates what I've been trying to do, that people think there's, a team working on this. I like that.
So I'm interested, what's your take on niching then? Because obviously you have a lot of different fingers and a lot of pies, but a lot of designers just do logos or they just do posters. If someone just said to you now, to become successful, I know you're already successful, but you only have to do logos. How would you respond to that?
So 90% of my career, I'm going to answer this one, and I know we got a couple more that want to ask.
Yeah, sorry.
So I worked 90% of my career was in-house. So even if I wasn't working on just one particular thing, I was working in one particular thing, and I hate that. Right?
Yeah.
If you look at my work, you talked about it, I'm doing a lot of different things, everything from stuff for a barbershop to a restaurant to an apparel company to, a professional sports team. I mean, it's all over the place, but I love that. I crave that,
diversity.
I really crave that difference. I love the diversity in what I do and who I work with, right? I mean, I go from working for the Atlanta Hawks to a chef out in Birmingham to a rap to Killer Mike. I mean, there's 3 completely different things right there, but they all have that one thing, and it's that love of good design.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been pretty incredible. So if you want to have a niche, have a niche. If you don't want to have a niche, don't have a niche. That's the one thing I love about design is you can do kind of what you want especially if you're successful at it. and you can kind of be whatever that is. But you do get out of this exactly what you put into it. So if you say, I want to be a niche in this thing, okay, well, that means you're really going to have to work your tail off to set yourself apart in that particular industry. That's going to take a lot more work, but it is absolutely doable.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. Mark, you had a question?
There we go. I'm unmuted. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
So, goal setting. I was wondering if you ever set yourself a goal of achieving something or working with certain clients, and if you have, what have you done on the daily to make sure you get that goal?
I mean, everybody has a client, like there's one or two clients to be cool, but some of my dream clients I never even knew existed. Some of the people that I never thought about working for or even reaching out to have become clients and have become those, those golden egg type of clients. I never know, right? As far as long-term goals, there's some of that stuff. I'm constantly thinking about things to be better, things that I'd like to do. But where it all starts is your day-to-day. I have these things right now that I have to get done so that I can do this. So I always start day-to-day working through these things. And that's what makes that type of stuff possible for me. Because if you look so far from me, and like I said, this is me. Take it with a grain of salt. But for me, if I look so far ahead and I miss what's happening right in front of me, or what I have to do right in front of me, or what's due tomorrow, So that would be kind of my answer to that.
Okay. So do you have anything that you do on every single day to make that happen, or is it just a to-do list of work?
It's a to-do list. It's setting myself up to to be as successful as I can, whether that's trying to get sleep, whether that is saying yes to some things, no to other things. I'm a dad, I'm a husband. I've got things that need to happen. Sometimes I get as much work done as I need to. Sometimes I don't. I've got to make it up other places. But in the end, you do what you say you're going to do.
Fair enough. All right. Thank you.
And then I think it was, is it Piyush? Piyush?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Oh, hey Scott, this is Piyush. I have a question for you. What can you give one tip which you can give to a guy who is just starting in the design industry?
I tell you what, can you type that in? Can you type that in? I'm having a really hard time hearing you. If you wouldn't mind just typing that in a little question thing.
Yeah, I think you said if there's one tip you could give to someone starting in the industry, in the design industry, what would it be?
One's, relationships. Get to know people, put yourself out there, and get the work out there. You gotta keep putting that stuff out there. You gotta keep getting the work out there. It's a constant up in the morning, get the stuff done. Up in the morning, get the stuff done. It's a constant thing, right? Very Groundhog Day-ish, but it works. So that'll be the biggest thing. Make those relationships, get yourself out there. Make your own stuff. You can just be, make some decals for yourself to kind of hand out to folks. Make a little something for folks to remember you by. Something that they don't want to throw away, like a business card. But get those relationships. Talk to people. Other than just online. I'm saying this as we're all online talking to each other, but you understand what I'm saying. And then continue to put the work out there. And then, let's see, Isabel.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Okay, so when you are at the moment of giving your business card, like I assume that basically, how it goes is you talk, what do you do? I'm a designer. Oh yeah, I need one. And it's can I have your card? How do you make that card impactful so that people remember you and they will actually keep it?
So I have a little cheat around that. I stopped carrying business cards 2 years ago. What I do is I will ask if they do not have one, I will have them write down their contact information in my notebook. That way, they can't. It's not something that I'll lose. And if they're willing to write it down, I can't lose at this point,
Yeah,
right? Or if they do hand me a card, I will make a big show of, like, I've got this one right here. It's like, oh, that's great. Thank you so much. I'm gonna put this thing right in here, keep it safe, and I'll send you an email as soon as I get back. I make that show of putting it, say, look, this is basically, everything that I do goes in one of these things, and people understand that at this point. So I put that in there. That means something. That means I'm trying to keep this thing safe. This is very important to me, right? So that's how that works. As far as the business card, just keep it simple, man. Not so simple that it's forgettable. But like let's see if I can find one of my old cards. I might have one of my old cards lying around somewhere. But it was basically a big, thick piece of yellow French paper and red type. That's it. But for me, excuse me, it was memorable. That was my colors. That was what I did. So that seemed to work really well for me. So make it memorable, keep it easy, keep it simple and to the point.
Thank you.
Let's see, Adrian. Who's Adrian?
Yeah, man, can you hear me?
Hey, man. All right, what do you got?
Yeah, so you had mentioned that you had gotten like 5 clients. Right now, I'm in the process of handling 2, and I'm just curious if you have any tips on like time management and stuff, because I work a full-time job as well while I'm trying to build my portfolio up.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm curious if you have any tips on like time management and stuff and how you kind of structured out your days to get those clients what they needed.
It really is just you start with the ones that are important and you in descending order. That's how it is. Now, I really let people know where they are in the pecking order, but if somebody's coming through and paying me, X amount of figures to get something done in a week, if they're willing to pay that much, yeah, then they go straight to the top. I mean, it just makes a sense. I mean, if you're spending an entire day or 2 days on a quick project that somebody paid you a couple $100 for, when you've got 3 clients that are paying you 4 and 5 figures to get this stuff done, then your time management's a little off at that point. I understand some might be more fun than others, but there's still people that have paid for this certain thing to kind of get done. That's where the daily to-do lists come up. And it's not just a general thing. It's very specific. I need to get this done. I need to get that done. I need to have this done by this time because this is due. And you have a constant understanding of when these due dates are, right? Figure out the due dates, figure that out, and then kind of go from there. Now, as somebody who had a full-time job and was doing this thing, there will be late nights. There will be some of those different things like that. I used to do a working lunch every day. I'd go to work with everybody in the team on a Friday, but Monday through Thursday, lunch was mine. I would leave the office. I would work for 45 minutes to 50 minutes, and about an hour break. During the last couple minutes, I might take a quick cat nap, or then I would grab my lunch. And then what I would do is I would eat my lunch during the rest of the afternoon so that I didn't get tired, so that I wasn't going through food coma or something like that. But I was able to get those works done, able to get that work done. And then just kind of go from there. You have to set things up at a certain time. You have to have client calls at a very certain time. That's honestly, the time management there was even more critical than even what I'm doing right now, because you had such a limited time to get that stuff in, right? So that's kind of how I go about it.
Sweet, thank you, man.
Yeah. All right, let's see. All right, Fred, what do you got?
Yeah, so you make a lot of things, a lot of things. How does your inspiration keep on going? Because at a certain point, don't you feel a bit not burnout, but like there's nothing in you anymore to put out on paper or to digitalize?
Not necessarily. I mean, yes, we all do get tired. Yes, I do get burnt out. Yes, sometimes I crash. That has happened to me already this year. And a lot of times it has nothing to do with design. It has a lot to do with what is actually happening behind the scenes, right? I don't really get, with designs, but like going through some stuff right now that is more important than design by far. And it's taking up that amount of time because it's worth it. I got really behind back in May, just because of some things that were happening. But I had built a reputation up to the point where I could call my clients and say, look, I need a little more time. I need like an extra week. Some folks are like, I need an extra 2 weeks to do this thing. And I let them know in plenty of time. This is possible. I might be able to get it done, but I might need a little more time. Every single one of them said no problem, because I built up the reputation that I can get this stuff done when I say I'm going to get it done. But as far as inspiration and everything, I'm inspired by what's going on around me. Everything from every poster that I put up in my studio is very specifically chosen for a reason. The books that I have here within arm's reach, as opposed to books that I have over here on the shelf, that is all that changes on a week-to-week basis. Depending on like what I'm working on, what I want to think through, what inspires me at the time. But in the end, I'm just inspired because I just want to do the work. I mean, it can be something that may not be as flattering or as award-winning or something like that as other things, but I still enjoy doing it. So that's where that kind of comes from for me. I mean, I can reach over here and I can find this, or I could, I love these guys, this is all within, a whisker's length of my hand at the moment, to old matchbooks, to, oh man, found this guy the other day, patches, kind of like that. I mean, just beautiful, fun to look at, things that are just done really, really well. Were my favorite identity designs, the Atlanta Flames, that are our old hockey team here from the 70s, man. Still one of my favorite logos of all time. You never know where this stuff's going to come from, but it's all right here within reach. And then going out and seeing different things and just kind of being open to the world. I think it was there's a show on Netflix called Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee. If anybody's seen that, one of the ones, my favorite ones they talked to was Steve Harvey. He was talking about being a comedian. He said, look, we have a third eye right in the middle of our forehead that sees the world so differently, and it's not something we can just shut down. I love what I do. I love the fact that I get to do it for myself, for other people, and that I get to make a living and support my family because of it. And, it's a part of who I am. It's as much a part of my life as food, as breathing, as, as what I wear. It's just a part of me, So I think Fred said we need to start wrapping it up soon. So really, let me do, I can do 2 more questions. I've got one here from Piyush, and then I can do one more. So I'm going to answer this one real quick. Said, how do you cope with the hard days when things don't work out and you can't figure out what should be done? When are you out of your ideas? Rarely are you really out of ideas as much as you've been sitting in one place for too long. You need to get up, walk around, get the blood flowing. Maybe you got to use a bathroom. Has anybody ever been working so long and you realize, man, there's something messing with me right now? And it's like, well, let's see, I've been sitting here for 4 hours. You stand up and your back hurts and your knees are feeling weird. You got to pee and you're thirsty or you're hungry. I mean, all of these things have an effect on how you're able to actually do your job. Sometimes I will jump off of that project for a second and go on to something else for 15, 20 minutes. So no really creative block, just take a little break, come back, and you should be good. All right, last question. Who's going to be?
Come on, someone.
Fred, you set this whole thing up. We'll give you the last question if you'd like one.
Okay, sounds good. I actually had a question from someone who couldn't be here.
Oh, sure. Let's have it.
Yeah, so he is really inspired by you. You'll see that he likes like all your pictures. And he was wondering, how do you choose the colors that you do on your icons? Because like if you go through someone else's feed on Instagram, they're never as colorful and as bright and as I guess different than yours are. So how do you go about that?
Oops. Hold on. Sorry, hold on a second. So just for kicks and giggles, this is me. A lot of this stuff is done with client colors. A lot of it is done for fun. I don't know, man. It's you pick it based on certain things like what is it? This is like a little thing that I'm working on for Chick-fil-A. They're very bright and colorful, and they have these awesome secondary colors you don't get to see very much. They're really, really super bright. So I got a chance to play with that palette for one. I mean, like with this guy's right here for switch yards, you have these colors that are vibrant, but in an old school, gritty kind of a way. They're still bright and they're still kind of in your face, but they're not overpowering, except that SDC in the middle. Other than that one, everything is kind of toned back, but because it's a certain, mix of those colors or whatnot, and because of the imagery itself, it makes it pop and kind of stream a little bit more, right? So that really just depends on, either who you're working for or, I mean, look at this. I mean, I'm surrounded by color. On my desk to my office. I mean, I'm just surrounded by this stuff. So I want to try to use as much of it as I possibly can to make the biggest impact on who I'm doing the work for. And you guys are gonna love this. Last week I launched for the first time. I've never had a website before. My first time I've ever had a website, and it is now live. And I got to put a ton of yellow in there. It is studiotemporary.com. Just scroll on through, and I got a chance to really punch this stuff up. Everything from illustration to, these little guys. I mean, becoming red and the greens and everything like that. Like, yeah, it's got some pop to it, but it's not insanely bright. But you put them together, and they look great. The stamps, I mean, most of these are just one or two colors, but it's the right combination of those colors that really make a difference.
And Scott, what does the future hold for you? That's a question that Let's Talk Branding always asks, so I'm gonna steal it for today.
Future holds for me. I'm hungry, so I'm gonna go have something to eat. Probably my shake. I'll have that. It's a lot of the same, man. I'm getting a lot of opportunities now to do more speaking, to do more workshops, to do a lot more things like this. But I never want to get to the point where that's what I do. It's like I am doing this stuff, and it's like, oh, you're talking about the stuff that you have done in the past, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that way. I've had people asking me like, when are you going to do a book? I've had people ask that. The answer is, I don't know. It seems like some people want it, but it's kind of okay. I've seen a lot of heads nodding. Maybe sooner rather than later. I might self-publish a little something, maybe just like a book of some of the work that I've done. More of a picture book than an actual writing kind of a thing. I don't know. It's I'll see what happens. I don't know. But either way, if I make a book, don't make a book, never get a chance to do this again, I never get a chance to do a talk or a workshop or whatever again. I still, in fact, that I love what I do and I get to do it. And I can touch a few folks even if I'm not there, that just through design, I can have a little bit of fun with this. And there it is.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining. I think tomorrow morning or late evening today, the call will be reposted in the Discord. So if you want to look back, check your notes or something like that. And for the folks that weren't here, can always watch it. But thank you so much, Scott, for joining, and everyone else.
Last thing, thank you each and every one of you guys a ton. Thanks to Fred. Good to finally meet you. Thanks for setting this whole thing up. I had a blast to each and every one of y'all. If you want to ask me any more questions, follow me on Instagram. I'm at Studio Temporary on Instagram. So please do that as well. Here, I'll go ahead and put my there's my my bid if you guys are not following me yet. But shoot me a direct message. I'll say hey. I'll answer them as soon as I can. Usually same day. But there's some great questions. There's some very hungry, talented people on here for sure. So keep up the good work. Up in the morning and get it done. Just keep doing that each day, every day, and just have fun with this stuff.